City Council meeting to order. Welcome everyone, and I'd like to introduce T.S. Robinson. He's an Assistant Fire Chief. He'll lead us in our invocation. We'll ask everyone to stand, and following the invocation, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's stand.
Let us pray. Lord, we meet in this place tonight to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of the community fairly and make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and our efforts here this evening. May we act wisely and well as you allow us to lead our community. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. We have a number of presentations tonight, and one of the first presentations we're going to do is the presentation with our security team. They've been working security here for 10 years. So I'm going to ask Chief Williams to come forward as we present some awards to the security team, and then we'll have some presentations and commendations for Medal of Valor. Team to please come forward. Thank you, guys. Come on now. Thank you. Thank you. I feel protected. All right, thank you. Certificate of Appreciation. Whereas we celebrate National Police Week and paid tribute and honored the sacrificial commitment and the dedicated service of our law enforcement officers. And whereas I think it is fitting to recognize a team with our Wilmington Police Department under the leadership of Chief Donnie Williams that has been a part of the security detail for the Wilmington City Council meetings for 10 years. And whereas Sergeant Myron, Officer Adam Phillips, Corporal Suzanne Gender, Corporal Michael Scott, and Sergeant Craig Melville have served since March 2014 to the current date, helping with the security details in early implementation, and is now our lead to go-to persons in working in harmony with the city and the city clerk. And whereas we are grateful for your commitment and unwavering dedication and want you to know it does not go unnoticed. And whereas the Wilmington City Council wish to express our appreciation as the officers continue to serve and protect our residents and the Wilmington City Council, it is essential to express our gratitude for you being the guardians of peace, comfort, and security for the staff and the entire City Council during our meetings. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Clifford Barnett, and Mayor Bill Sappho do hereby express gratitude and much appreciation to this security team and salute your commitment and thank you for your services. Done this day, the 21st day of May, 2024. We appreciate you guys and thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, man. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right. Thank you. Sorry. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you. All right. Come on. Get a picture, Chief. Get in. All right. There you go. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Okay.
Before we call our first group of officers up to receive awards, we want to take this opportunity to thank our community for supporting the women and men of the Wilmington Police Department. The heroic acts that you will hear about today, these officers did not know that they would face these situations when they started their shifts. Like most police officers, they came to work to serve the people, with the goal of returning home to their families. For the first group of recipients, I would like to call up Officers Christian Bardalis, Vincent Bongiorno, Dylan Haymore, William Merritt, and Sergeant Josh Miller, and you can bring your families also. On January 26, 2024, these officers responded to a nuisance call involving a subject who had pointed a gun at officers before. Upon arrival, the suspect threatened to shoot the officers and began to fire at Sergeant Miller. Sergeant Miller bailed out of his vehicle, challenged the suspect, who did not comply, and then returned fire. Officers then bravely took the suspect into custody. Sergeant Miller, Officers Bardalis, Bongiorno, Haymore, and Merritt displayed professionalism and courage in confronting and arresting a dangerous subject. Their actions are in the finest traditions of the Wilmington Police Department and Merritt. Sergeant Miller, a Medal of Valor, and Officers Bardalis, Bongiorno, Haymore, and Merritt, the Certificate of Merit. And I'm so proud of each and every one of them. You'll have to look at the name tags. That's Bardalis. For the next group of officers, I would like to call Officers Christopher Nagel, Tanner Hayden, and Christopher Stotler, also Citizen Owen Cox and Judge Dunham. And your families are also welcome to join. Oh, really? And I'll go ahead and share with you that March was a busy month for us, and you'll see with some more awards. On March the 10th, 2024, these officers and citizens responded to a verbal dispute on Water Street. They located a female who had lowered herself into the Cape Fear River and was hanging onto a piler in the water. She swam out to the river, and crew members of Beeline Water Taxi assisted our officers in their boat. Officers boarded the boat, and together they were able to safely bring the female back to the dock. The actions by both the officers and the citizens who took action to help are in the finest traditions of the Wilmington Police Department and do not go unnoticed. These actions merit life-saving awards for Officers Nagel, Hayden, and Stotler, and citizen commendations for Owen Cox and Judge Dunham. Again, we cannot do this alone without citizens helping us out there every day. Our next award is for Detective Andrew Vrooman, who cannot be here, so I'm going to call up his captain, Captain Chris Farr, to receive his award. On March 13, 2024, Detective Andrew Vrooman heard a traffic collision occur and saw it was a serious accident that involved a motorcycle. He grabbed his medical kit and responded on foot, where he found the driver of the motorcycle bleeding heavily with extremely serious injuries to his leg. Detective Vrooman quickly applied a tourniquet to the subject's leg. Ultimately, the driver of the motorcycle lost his leg, but medical staff at the hospital and the driver agreed that Detective Vrooman's actions limited the loss of blood and saved his life. The actions of Detective Vrooman are in the finest traditions of the Wilmington Police Department and merit him a life-saving award. Officer Taylor Daniels and your family is welcome to join. On March 16, 2024, Officer Taylor Daniels was dispatched to the area of Greenfield Lake in reference to a suicidal subject. Officer Daniels located the subject in his vehicle and noticed he had a weapon between his legs pointed at himself, with his toe on the trigger. The bravery and calm displayed by Officer Daniels in this dangerous situation directly led to the subject being safely removed from the car and the weapon taken away from him, saving him from harming himself. The actions of Officer Daniels are in the finest traditions of the Wilmington Police Department and merit her a life-saving award. Officers Jake Johnson and Juan Lohr. On April 6, 2024, Officers Jake Johnson and Juan Lohr responded to the Riverwalk regarding the subject in the river. The subject was heavily intoxicated and had climbed over the railing after an argument with his girlfriend and was found in the water clinging to a lower dock. Officers Johnson and Lohr pulled the male from the river, who at this point had lost consciousness. The water temperature was 62 degrees and the air temperature was in the 50s. If it wasn't for their timely actions, the male could have easily drowned. The actions by both officers are in the finest traditions of the Wilmington Police Department and merit them a life-saving award. Thank you, Laura. Our final recipient for tonight is Sergeant David Pellegrino, and I don't think he's here, so Captain Tom Tillman will be receiving on his behalf. On April 7, 2024, Sergeant Dave Pellegrino responded to a call for a domestic disturbance with a weapon. The subject pointed a handgun at Sergeant Pellegrino from inside the house, and Sergeant Pellegrino fired back, causing a slight wound to the suspect. Sergeant Pellegrino then put himself in harm's way and entered the residence later to render aid and take the suspect into custody. The brave actions of Sergeant Pellegrino directly resulted in the apprehension of this violent individual and are in the finest traditions of the Wilmington Police Department and merit him a Medal of Valor.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Got a proclamation. Yes. Yeah. And we want to thank the families, those of you who made sacrifices for them to do what they did. We really appreciate their support. Can we give them another hand? We'd like to call Dave Mays, President, as we're going to do a proclamation. This is a proclamation for Public Works. And as he's coming forward, members of his team are coming as well. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, man. Good to see you. Thank you. City of Wilmington proclamation. Whereas the City of Wilmington Public Works Department employs women and men who focus on maintaining and improving public street infrastructure, public facilities, recycling, trash, and stormwater services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of Wilmington. And whereas the work performed by the City of Wilmington Public Works Department employees could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work workers who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of the city, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, maintaining, and protecting our nation's transportation, drainage, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for the residents, civic leaders, and children in Wilmington to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Wilmington City Council, I, Bill Sappho, do hereby designate the week of May 19th to 25, 2024 as National Public Works Week, and urge residents to join with me and the American Public Works Association and other government agencies in expressing appreciation for the women and men of the City of Wilmington Public Works Department, and acknowledge the substantial contributions public works employees make protecting our nation's health, safety, and advancing quality of life for all. Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First, I'd just like to recognize my staff and thank them for coming tonight. You should be proud. We've got a good staff, really good, lots of dedication right here. I'd also like to just recognize the council that whenever y'all make a decision that helps us do our job, whether it's signing a contract, buying a piece of equipment, or anything for the benefit of our employees, that is certainly noted and recognized by us because it helps us do the job that we were hired to do. And lastly, to those that have taken time to watch tonight, if you have a chance to, when you see our staff that are out in the field, whether they're collecting your trash or cleaning out a drainage system or actually keeping the city council chambers cool tonight, please stop and take a minute and walk up to them and say thank you for what you do, because they're here providing service for you. That's what they're here for. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. District Court Judge, the Honorable Robin Robinson. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you again. City of Wilmington proclamation. Whereas according to All Rise Treatment Court, courts are the most successful intervention in our nation's history for leading people with substance use and mental health disorders out of the justice system and into the lives of recovery, stability, and health. Whereas there are now more than 4,000 treatment courts nationwide, and whereas treatment courts are the cornerstone of justice reform sweeping the nation, and whereas treatment courts annually refer more than 150,000 people to life-saving treatment and recovery support services and save an average of $6,000 for every individual they serve. And whereas, according to All Rise, treatment courts significantly improve substance use disorder treatment outcomes, substantially reducing addiction and related crime, and do so at less expense than any other justice strategy. And whereas treatment courts improve education, employment, housing, and financial stability, promote family reunification, reduce foster care placement, and whereas treatment courts demonstrate that when one person rises, we all rise. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City of Wilmington and the Wilmington City Council, I Bill Sappho proclaim May as Treatment Court Month. And thank you for your service. Good. Please stand up.
Thank you. That's great. Mayor Pro Tem Barnett and all the city council members gathered, Madam Clerk, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be with you all tonight. As mentioned, my name is Robin Wicks Robinson. I serve as one of your district court judges for New Hanover and Pender counties. It's a great honor to be of service in the community. As you may know, district court is kind of the people's court. We have about 95% of all the cases that go through court are in district court. Lots of criminal, misdemeanor, lower level felonies, traffic court, lots of civil cases. All of the family court is in district court, and that's primarily where I serve. Also, our juvenile court, our child welfare cases, our mental commitments, our domestic violence, all of the social ills, if you will, are played out each day in court. And we can rarely get to the root of the problem, or we try very hard to, but can't always do so successfully. But we do try to make a positive difference where we can, and we certainly appreciate this proclamation and community support. As was mentioned, all of the wonderful things that were stated about our treatment court programs across the nation as they have grown in the last several years and here locally, that is actually one of the areas where we can get to the root of the problem. That, in fact, is the main purpose of the treatment and recovery court programs that we run. It is post-conviction probation for those who have expressed a desire to get help with the root cause of what caused them to be justice involved. And they go through an extremely rigorous form of probation while also being in an intensive recovery program. We meet regularly about every other week with them with a multidisciplinary team of professionals from the courts as well as the communities. I am so honored to mention, special shout out to Councilman David Joyner. He is one of our assistant DAs, and he is a very dedicated member of our treatment court teams. I am privileged to serve as the Veteran Treatment Court presiding judge. That is a special program, as you might gather, for veterans who have been justice involved, who do want to get that help through the program, and they may be eligible for some veteran benefits too, but we try to match them with resources, as was mentioned in the proclamation, whether it be housing or vocational rehabilitation, a variety of things that we can try to refer to them while they're job one. Really at that phase, it's usually about 18 months or so that it takes to go successfully through the program while they're on probation. That is job one, is recovery, of course, because that's the ripple effect. It leads to all of the other wonderful things that can come from recovery, and it helps when they're in their personal relationships with them as an individual out in the community. Treatment court really does work. The recidivism rate is extremely low, and as was mentioned, because of that, it saves a lot of other dollars if you were quantifying the impact of treatment court. I do remember one day speaking in a request for some continued funding for one of our programs, making the analogy that it's about $2 a day for the program and $82 a day for the jail. And that might have been inflated more recently, but all the numbers went up proportionately, so it really is a great cost savings financially, but it's a savings of lives, it's a savings of community strife and just the impact. The recidivism rate is so low that the impact is really exponential if you think about it that way. So we just really want to get the word out. We're very grateful for this proclamation and being honored by City Council for what we try to do. Judge Faison, as y'all probably know James Faison, he is a long-term presider over our regular recovery court program. Judge Lindsay McKee presides over our community empowerment court program, in which the main underlying problem was more mental health than substance use. But as you know, they're often co-occurring, but we try to identify the best program for the folks who are going through the justice system, so we can identify those needs and match those up with the resources that we can provide. There is high accountability, again, for their personal lives, their family relationships, their jobs, their members of, productive members of our community. So once again, we thank you for your support, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. That's it. All right, thank you. And before we get to the consent agenda, just for the record, I wanted to let the police officers know that I'm not that short. Everybody that had to kneel down, they didn't have to bend down. They just did that. Okay. All right. Now going to our consent agenda. I'll ask the members of the council, do you have any questions or wishes to pull any item from the consent agenda, items C1 to C8? If so, I'll pull them separately. If not, I'll ask the wishes of the council.
C5.
All right, C5 is pulled. Any other? Okay. All right, then I'll hear the wishes of the council.
I move items C1 through C4 and C6 through C8.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? Okay, been moved by Councilman Robin Bach, seconded by Councilman Salet. Are you ready for the question? All in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it and so ordered. C5.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Manager, this is probably a non-issue, but on the map, third page of item C5, it appears that the portions of the historic district extend into the river. I would assume that's not what we're going to have Terracon expand the historic districts into the river. That could be problematic. Just want to make sure.
You've gotten my goat. I can't answer that question for you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. You are correct. That boundary does extend into the river. We are not asking Terracon to survey. They're going to be focusing on surveying structures, but that district boundary does extend into the river today.
It always has extended
Yes.
into the river?
Yes.
Is that something we can have them take a look at, maybe with, if they're going to be surveying to see if something we can clean up?
Now I'm asking for assistance from our historic preservation planner who'll be managing this project. This is our senior historic preservation planner, Jessica Baldwin.
Thank you.
Good evening. They're not actually going to, it's unclear if they'll actually alter the boundaries. It currently extends to the river because it includes the battleship across the way. So that is
Okay.
why that portion of the river is included currently. We don't expect any change to the boundaries. It's just, this is more of a active survey so that we know what we have and what we don't have.
Okay. All right. So it's not expanding the boundary
No, sir.
whatsoever? Okay. Thank you.
All right. You want to, all right, it's been moved that we accept C5 by Councilman Luke Waddell, seconded by Councilman Robin Bach. All in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Ayes, any opposed? Okay. The ayes have it, and it is so ordered. Our next item of business is our public information. We had 3 people to sign up. One was scheduled to speak, and she is canceled. That's Miss Ellie Klein. So the first person we'll have to speak is Rabbi Robert Wackman, and he's speaking on behalf of Israel and the peace dialogue. And you'll have 5 minutes, Rabbi. And then second will be Miss Diana Hill, and she's speaking on a resolution. Rabbi, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I have 3 brief items to make mention of. The citizens of Israel continue to demonstrate a robust democracy in action. Week after week, citizens gather in Tel Aviv to express their opinions regarding the many aspects of the Gaza and northern border situations. They remind everyone, all the citizens, of events that started on October the 7th with the unprovoked attack by Hamas, the killing of non-military citizens, and more than 100 hostages still remaining in Hamas captivity. And I come to suggest that City Council leave the internal challenges facing the state of Israel to the citizens of Israel. And there will be time for a ceasefire when the various parties involved can agree to that. I would like to thank the council and the various city and county agencies for a safe and uninterrupted graduation season for our graduates here in Wilmington. We know that the successful conclusion of the school year that we have just concluded, the exam period, and the graduation ceremonies did not just happen. I speak from personal experience. 56 years ago, I was a freshman attending Columbia University and a Jewish Theological Seminary. And here's a picture of my graduation picture of that I had when I was there at Columbia. And this was the time of the 60s with protests against the Vietnam War. Classes were disrupted. Some of my classes met in professors' apartments. I walked by Hamilton Hall every day, and I remember the night when police were called on to clear out Hamilton Hall 56 years ago. Our campuses are not campsites. Back then there were buildings, there were lecture halls where debates took place. And so I thank all of you involved in that behind the scenes. And one last thing, I would like to thank council members for teaching about and commemorating the events of November the 10th, 1898. This was the only coup d'etat in American history, and we must continue to tell that story. I served as the co-chair of the 1998 100th anniversary commemoration with John Battle. We met at the former site of the Wilmington Journal newspaper. We told part of the story there. We walked to this building, City Hall, where we told more of the story. And then we walked down 4th Street to the 1898 memorial. This was a very special occasion. I thank you for all your attention to these matters. It seems that it has been a custom for people to want to quote to you from Torah or from the Talmud and rabbinic literature. So I will just say, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It is not our task to complete the job, but we are not free to desist from it. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Ms. Diana Hill.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I may not even need all my cards. I was anticipating some another side of the story, and I was going to give you all kinds of facts and figures. But what I'd really like to say is, I wish that if you're going to pass any resolution, you would pass a resolution that you're not going to pass a resolution about anything that's international. I watch too much news, and one of the things I watch is the UN press briefings. So unless you're going to pass resolutions about the Ukraine, Syria, Somalia, the Congo, Haiti, Taiwan, Sudan, Afghanistan, Rwanda, Myanmar, Nigeria, Mali, and Niger, I think you're going to have a lot of meetings going on. So I did suggest this to one council member and said it would cause more trouble. But I don't know how much more trouble you could have than having people here every city council meeting, except this one, asking you to pass a resolution about something that we absolutely have nothing to do with, except as individual citizens of the United States, where we can make our feelings known. That's why I write to Biden and Blinken, although they don't write back. So those are the people that have something to do with this. And when people come here and talk to you about your responsibility, I think all of you know that no munitions are sent out of the city of Wilmington, the state port. They're sent out of where? Thank you, Sunny Point. And so not only are they in the wrong city asking you to do something, but they're actually in the wrong county asking you to do this. So I would ask you to put together a resolution, unless there's some law against it, not to get into international politics. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right. Now we're going to our public hearing, and we have public hearing numbers 1 and 2. Mr. City Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Pro Tem, members of council. Staff would like to ask that PH1 and PH2 both be postponed until June the 4th, 2024. Wow. I am getting old. To 2024, so that we could better prepare for the hearings.
Thank you. I have a motion to that effect from Johnny Rivenbach, seconded by Councilman Spears. All those in favor of that motion, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, ayes have it and so ordered.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I
Yes,
could
ma'am.
just add, because we have quite a few people here for those 2 items. They're standing in the back, and staff said if needed be, they would meet with them, but right this minute, both items have been continued, but Rachel said that if they had concerns, we'd make a list and get back with them.
Okay.
Thank
Now,
you.
did you guys understand that? That they've been moved to the June meeting. And if you have any questions or concerns, you'll talk with the members of the staff. All right. Thank you. Okay. June 4th. Meeting June 4th. Okay. All right. All right. Next, we have ordinance making appropriations to the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024. Recognize City Manager Tony Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I know those of you who have been with us a while know that me taking the podium is a little unusual. It's got most of my staff members scared half to death. They're afraid of what I'm going to say, so please bear with me if you will. I am up here tonight to do an introduction to the city manager's recommended budget for 2 reasons. First of all, this is the city manager's recommended budget, and I felt compelled to get before you and discuss the presentation before it actually has public comment. There's something about me that will not allow me to sit on the sidelines from a major initiative such as this. And so I bring my presence and am willing to answer questions. The second is I hope to make us all better drivers. I have a friend who is a avid race car driver, very good driver, and he teaches at the same time. And he teaches folks to look down the road, that as pressure gets on us, as we get into situations where they are pressure-packed, they are more intense, we tend to look down. We tend to look more closely towards the front of the car or the front of yourself. And what I'm trying to do is convince you tonight that we are trying to look not only for the issues that are going on immediately in front of us, but also trying to steer for present danger as well as future danger. So what we're trying to do tonight is to bring this to you and frame it in context of those plans and those initiatives that the staff has already presented to you and you've already adopted. And see, they've already taken it away from me.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, while they're pulling it up.
Yes, sir.
I think I ask this every year, Mr. Manager, but what we're doing tonight is simply the presentation of the recommended budget. There's no action to be taken by council.
No, sir. There is no action to be taken. You are here to hear public input on the manager's proposed budget. You will have your first workshop, as you know, on Friday. And then we will go through 2 readings in June, the first meeting and the second at the second meeting.
Thank you. I'll probably ask you next year as well, but thank you.
That'll be fine. I may be able to remember by then. Okay. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So we started this budget process a long time ago. It advances the vision of City Council. In order to be able to put this budget together at the staff level, we translated your vision into this mission statement. Through forward-thinking policies and responsible stewardship, we are creating a better city every day with excellent core services and quality of life for all. This mission infuses my recommended budget. We began with the budget sessions back in November. We had budget workshops in both January and March, and hopefully we got a feel from you for what we needed to do to develop this budget appropriately. So the budget is designed to take care of both near-term and long-term challenges and opportunities to the city. Next slide, please. So there are 3 pillars on which we built this budget. Delivering core service at a high level is a basic expectation not only of the public but of our own organization. Our budget needs to maintain focus on service delivery, ensuring that we place resources where they will support continued improvement of core service delivery. Secondly, we built the budget on the adoption of the strategic plan that you adopted back in February. Beyond the day-to-day core services, City Council adopted the 5-year strategic plan, which identified focus areas that were designed to make gains for the city. The budget reflects the strategic plan and keeps us concentrated on how we prioritize and allocate discrete resources. Finally, you have charged me with the fiscally sound management of this government. Our goal is to create not only fiscally sound practices, but to ensure that we have money available for things such as running operations, emergency management, and other investments at appropriate times so that today's decisions don't become tomorrow's problems. Next, please. These are the focus areas that came out of your strategic plan. I'm going to focus my presentation around these 5 focus areas, but just to hit on them quickly: create a thriving, inclusive, and affordable community of neighborhoods, cultivate an environment for economic growth, job creation, cultural vibrance, achieve organizational excellence, create a safe, healthy, and engaged community, and develop an efficient, accessible, and sustainable multimodal transportation network and city infrastructure. To address the area of communities and neighborhoods, this budget offers $2.3 million to sustain the growth of our affordable home programming. The city's mix of programming fills critical needs. We have not only gap financing dollars that maximize the impact of long-term affordable units, but we also have allocations made to owner-occupied rehab loans and home ownership programs that help people keep existing affordable homes and help home buyers get into affordable homes. And then finally, we've got a proposal in here for a Healthy Homes program that helps residents qualify for income levels to make critical and health and safety home upgrades. The housing rehabilitation technician, the budget creates this new position to bridge code enforcement and home rehab programs and grant opportunities, providing homeowners with code enforcement cases, accurate rehabilitation cost estimates, and identifying financial opportunities that can help individuals. Finally, City has established a policy for competitive agency funding. This has been sanctioned by City Council and has been an ongoing practice for a number of years. It's designed to fund and actively partner with civic, nonprofit, and faith-based organizations throughout the city, many of which address human needs services and contribute to affordability of housing. Our 2023 community survey cited affordable housing as the 3rd most important issue to your electorate. behind growth and traffic congestion. These investments in affordability and related health and safety needs align with a public priority for affordable housing, with our most recent community survey making sure that we stay in alignment with this. Next, please. In the realm of public safety, we have a number of investments that we're proposing. First of all, we're proposing to renew investment in investigative tools. The budget renews that technology and allows for increased usage and provides for better investigation and faster case closures. Law enforcement cameras. The FY25 budget also includes funding for law enforcement camera infrastructure. As we renew in-car cameras, these cameras will aggregate live video and data from both fixed and body-worn cameras to more thoroughly stream and capture incidents. This provides the ability to better prevent and address escalating situations. We value our street trees as well, but in preserving our street trees, we have to make sure that we plant and replant all over the city. And as the roots grow, they typically will push up sidewalks and create tripping hazards. And so there is a program in here designed to eliminate and reduce those tripping hazards. In FY25, the budget also funds the renewal of the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program. This is an old program that was done away with back in the recession of 2007 and 2008, where we tried to, through that program, eliminate conflicts between pedestrians, bicyclists, and automobiles. This particular program aims to reduce that through traffic calming and planning measures. Next, please. Achieving organizational excellence. Our commitment to organizational excellence ensures that we recruit and retain a highly skilled and highly capable workforce. Vacancies degrade service and disrupt organizational projects, which underscores the importance of building a competitive employee base in the marketplace. In FY25, it includes a blend of pay ranges and adjustments for performance merit, designed to reward and retain high performers. Career ladders are also included in the proposed budget, designed to retain good talent by creating pathways for professional development. Next. I mentioned earlier the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program, which plays an important role in the city's multimodal transportation network. In addition, we have $17.7 million in the FY25 budget for a capital improvements program addressing current and future needs, which are prioritized and phased over 5 years. In addition to the capital infrastructure spending, the CIP includes capital maintenance investments, which prolong the useful life of city infrastructure, maintaining higher quality infrastructure and reducing long-term costs. Our emphasis on traffic and transportation matches a critical public priority. Our residents believe that these are of high importance to the city and to the services that are provided. At the same time, these services demonstrate some of the lowest levels of public satisfaction. We believe that our budget presents clear direction to focus on making targeted gains in the performance of these services. Next, please. This is the CIP that is so important in our forthcoming budget. We have operated without a CIP over the course of the past year as we tried to ready ourselves for a group of projects that needed to come forward, focused mainly on infrastructure maintenance. Our FY25 budget funds the first year of a 5-year capital improvement program. Staff, under council's guidance, identified and prioritized critical large long-term capital improvements that needed to be made. The plan reflects $108.5 million in project needs over the next 5 years. 83% of these are transportation or stormwater-related projects. 83%. We believe that now is the time to begin making progress towards addressing these needs. Kicking the can down the road won't make them go away or make them any cheaper to fix. In fact, over half the proposed tax rate adjustment goes directly to critical capital improvements. Next, please. In a few minutes, I'm going to call Ms. Mortel up and let her give you a few more pieces of information associated with the budget. And this treads a little bit on what she is going to present to you, but I thought the graphic was important for everyone to see. In general fund expenditures, we spend almost 50% of our budget on public safety. That's fire and police. When you combine the public safety with the marginal amounts in public works, it is 50%. And then community services and planning make up the rest of the external services. Next, please. Where does that revenue come from? It comes from property tax and sales tax. 80% of it comes from property and sales tax. You only have control over one of those revenue sources. That's the property tax. Next, please. So this is a breakdown on where the proposed tax increase goes. I'd call your attention to the bottom block first, the 1.5 cents, which goes to the capital improvement program. That is the 5-year large expenditure program that is focused on maintenance. Most of that goes towards annualized projects over the 5-year period and are most, as I called your attention to earlier, associated with streets. For the first 2 years, 2.75 cents represents a 6.9% increase in the rate. We did not have a tax increase last year, annualized over 2 years. That's a 3.45% increase over 2 years, each year over 2 years. Remaining to address cost pressures of inflation are 1.25 cents. Those cost pressures for inflation include increased fuel, insurance, software license, equipment, maintenance, general operating needs for the city. The 1.55% over 2 years is in comparison to a 12.1% rate of inflation 22 to 23. We all recognize that inflation has slowed down since then, but please understand we experienced as an organization that inflation over the course of that 2 years. Next, please. So in summary, the total budget is $298 million. It's focused on operational improvement, focused on gains associated with your strategic plan, including affordable housing, neighborhood safety, organizational excellence, transportation improvements. It funds a new capital improvement program, something you have not had in a while. And it does not allow inflation to degrade service quality or organizational integrity. At this point, I'd like to call Ms. Mortel up, and I'm going to have her get back into some of the more intricate details of the budget. But again, I wanted to keep our attention focused down the road. We've not only got to look out for the hazards that are immediately in front of us, but we've got to avoid the ultimate collisions down the road as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Excuse me. There's a few things that will be repetitive, but we do think that this is important. My slides are a little shorter, so I won't be up here long, and we can start the public hearing. One of the things that I want to talk about and reiterate is how we frame the budget. We definitely use two components, the vision, mission, values, and you will see those spread throughout the budget document. And as City Manager Cottle said, we use the strategic plan. It's been in development for over a year, and it was adopted in February, and we used it to develop the budget as well. Total budget is just under $300 million, and the general fund, which takes up 50% of that total, is in the operating funds, and you will have capital improvement projects for 11%, which is just over $32 million. The recommended budget, the assessed values increased by 2%. The budget was prepared with a real property tax rate of 42.25 per 100 assessed value, which is a 2 3/4 cents more adjustment, and it's 6.9% over the current rate of 39.5 cents. One value is now $2.3 million. The general fund will be increased by 1.25 cents, and the debt service for the CIP will increase 1.5 cents. Now, what are the impacts of our residents? To provide an example, we have the median assessed single-family residential value in the city of Wilmington is presently $273,000. From that price point, owners should see an increase of roughly $75 annually or $6 monthly. Staff proposes a 2-year incremental vehicle tax adjustment to revitalize the neighborhood traffic management program to plan and respond to bike and pedestrian incidents with motor vehicles in our local streets. The state allows jurisdictions to levy up to $30. Presently, the city levies up to $5. Only 2 other jurisdictions in our benchmarking group also do $5, Kernersville and New Bern. Presently, the city has authority to go up to 25 out of the 30. Beginning in FY25, the proposal is to increase the levy by $10, with another $10 planned for 26 to get us to the 25, which will be in line with most of our peer cities. And then lastly, just some upcoming budget benchmarks. We have the public hearing tonight. We have your work session to work through the budget and your questions this coming Friday. And then we have budget adoption June 4th and June 18th. Thank you for letting us introduce the public hearing information.
Thank you. All right, so next we'll ask is if anyone in the public wishes to speak in favor or in opposition of the information that we just received. Yeah, okay. I'm opening up the public hearing. Thank you. Now we're opening up the public hearing, and so I would say to you in the audience, is there anyone in the public who would wish to speak in favor or in opposition of the information that you were just presented? Okay. Madam Clerk, were there any comments received that you may want to read into the record?
No, sir, I did not receive any.
Okay. All right. Then I ask the council, do they have any questions? Any questions? All right. All right. Then we don't vote on this, correct? All right. We do not. All right. So next we'll go to, oh, I'm sorry. Now we're ready to close the public hearing on that item. Right. Okay. Now, public hearing, now, was that A, B, and C?
That's all for A, B, C, and D.
Okay, so we're closing the public hearing for public hearings A, B, 3A, B, and C. Now, we're announcing the public hearing for item number PH4. It's an ordinance amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 18, for various amendments and cleanup items related to permanent uses, legacy district standards, parking lot landscaping, site design standards, electrical vehicle parking, and definition. Now, I do know that a number of you are here, and when we open up the public hearing, we're going to open it up for 30 minutes, and there will be 15 minutes for those who are in favor and 15 minutes for those who are opposed. But right now, we're going to recognize our City Manager, Tony Cardinal, and staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I believe Catherine Thurston, our zoning director, will review this item. I thought. Brian? Brian. Is Catherine here? Ah.
My apologies, I was responding to a question on a different matter. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Barnett, members of the Wilmington City Council. Whenever the new Land Development Code went into effect, December 1st, 2021, city staff committed to regular maintenance of the new code to correct errors or elements that do not work in implementation. The amendments before you this evening are part of that ongoing process and include changes to the universal use table, the R3 purpose statement, accessory buildings and accessory dwellings, legacy districts, and electric vehicle parking. The first of those items is an amendment to the universal use table to reflect the offices are not a permitted use in the residential historic district. The code in effect in 2021 only allowed such uses if they were occupied by a nonprofit historic organization. However, the new code does not differentiate between types of professional office uses, and the intent was to delete this as an allowable use in the HDR, which is reflected in the district-specific standards. The second amendment will change the purpose statement of the R3 district. Currently, the R3 zoning district only exists within the 1945 corporate limits. However, the same type of historical development pattern exists beyond that strict border. The proposed amendment would delete reference to the 1945 corporate limits in the R3 purpose statement and facilitate potential rezoning to R3 outside that area. And the third amendment is just a correction to a reference in a table in the Central Business District standards. Amendment 4 will align density limits for watershed resource protection areas and conservation areas within the legacy districts with what is allowable under current code utilizing exceptional design standards. Legacy districts include the MX, UMX outside the 1945 corporate limits, some multifamily districts, and the R20 district. When rewriting the Land Development Code, staff recognized the impervious surface area impacted water quality in our tidal creeks and waterways more directly than density and decided to base exceptional design allowances on this metric alone. However, those provisions did not automatically carry over to the legacy districts, even though staff continues to believe that this is the best management practice in these sensitive areas. Amendments 5 and 6 are related to accessory buildings and structures, including accessory dwelling units. The Land Development Code allows up to 2 accessory buildings per parcel and limits the total combined area of those buildings to no more than 100% of the square footage of the house. Accessory dwelling units are allowed up to 1,200 square feet. The table in the code inadvertently also restricts the square footage of any accessory building to 1,200 square feet, whether it's used as a dwelling or not. This amendment would correct that discrepancy and allow all of the allowable square footage of accessory buildings to be in one building if desired. The illustration at the top shows what is currently allowed, and the proposed amendment would allow either configuration. ADUs will still be limited to 50% of the square footage of the principal structure. However, accessory buildings in general will not be. Current code allows accessory dwelling units in every residential zoning district, whether the lots are conforming to the area requirements of the district or not. Lots that are non-conforming, however, are only allowed attached ADUs, which can result in arbitrary connections, as shown on the slide in the lower corner. The proposed amendment would also delete language distinguishing between internal and attached ADUs, since the code treats them the same way anyway. The next 2 amendments I have for you this evening will correct typographical errors. In the landscaping standards, the code reads that 1 canopy tree per 12 parking spaces is equal to 12 canopy trees per 44 parking spaces, and that should read per 144 parking spaces instead. Land Development Code Section 18589 pertains to modifications to approved plans and when such changes necessitate re-review by the governing board. Current code states that a reduction in the size of public utilities should require a modification. However, this is illogical, and it should state that an increase is considered a major modification. I'm skipping ahead a bit. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to let Linda take over for the final amendment, which you will recall was originally presented as a cleanup item to align the metrics used to calculate required parking for electric vehicles. This code section sparked a lot of interest from City Council, and following discussions with the Planning Commission has resulted in staff further refining this section of the code. Linda will discuss these provisions in greater depth, but before I do, I will add that these items were reviewed by Planning Commission on April 2nd with a recommendation of approval and presented to you all on May 6th at your last agenda review. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of city staff on any of the other items, and Linda is prepared to present on electric vehicle parking. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. As Catherine mentioned, this is something that was continued from our last cleanup package based on the feedback we received from City Council. What you see on your screen today is what the current requirements are for electric vehicle parking, and these have been in place since December of 2021 when the new code was adopted. Essentially, we require one vehicle parking or electric vehicle charging station for every 50 spaces that are in a parking lot, and this only applies to parking lots that have 25 spaces or more. Additionally, we do require another 1 per 50, so 2%. So 2% with charging stations, and then 2% or 1 per 50 have the necessary infrastructure to install a charging station in the future, if the demand exists. Based on the feedback we received from council, we went back and looked at the impact of the current requirements, and we found that we have 19 projects that have been approved since December of 2021 that have been subject to these requirements. Those are all under construction. I know there was a request for us to provide some photos or some addresses so you could check out the charging stations in person. Unfortunately, they're in the process of being built. We can tell you that you can see on the screen, of the spaces that have been approved, 94 are full charging spaces, and 109 are EV ready. The chart that you see on the screen before you is something that we got from the City of Raleigh, and I believe we also attached their full study on preparing for electric vehicle parking. And it basically identifies the estimated cost range for the different levels of charging stations and what it costs to install them, as well as the unit costs. Additional information that Raleigh included in their report, and this is actually from City of Denver research, is the cost to install the EV capable stations or the EV ready, so having the full circuit in place and doing that during construction versus retrofitting and trying to do that after the fact, and the cost savings that can occur if we put the infrastructure in ahead of time. So the other activity that we undertook after the council's discussion was to benchmark and to look at the other cities that we typically review amendments to see how they are handling different issues. And when it comes to electric vehicle parking, we found 4 of our benchmark cities do have some type of regulation. 2 cities, Charleston and Charlotte, have incentives. Incentives range from providing credit towards achieving height and density bonuses in the case of Charleston, to exempting EV spaces from maximum parking requirements, and as well as providing additional credit towards minimum parking for each EV space that's installed. And that is something that Charlotte is currently doing. In terms of mandatory requirements, we found that Charlotte and Greenville are requiring some level of EV chargers for parking, and those are typically limited to specific uses, which is different from how we had been handling it. We had only limited it based on the parking lot size, and they are also distinguishing between EV capable, EV ready, and EV SE installed, or electric vehicle supply equipment installed. And so you see on the diagram on your screen, the EV capable spaces are essentially reserving space in your electrical room and providing the path to get that future conduit to the parking space. EV ready is having that panel and that conduit in place, and EV SE installed is you have everything installed and ready to go, including the charging station. The proposed amendment is different from what we brought before you last time, which was simply a language cleanup. We did bring this before the Planning Commission, and they made some adjustments. So what you are seeing tonight is what the Planning Commission has recommended. These proposed amendments, including the Planning Commission changes, were presented to the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, which also supported the amendments as proposed by the Planning Commission. The amendments would add definitions. One of the things that we found is that while we are requiring charging spaces and being ready for charging spaces, we didn't define what that meant. And so we have been interpreting that as essentially level 1 charging. And so we are now codifying that by defining EV capable, again, reserving space in the electrical room for a panel, and providing a continuous raceway from the panel space to the future EV parking spaces. And then installed would be installing charging stations capable of providing 12 amp or 1.4 kilowatts, and that is a level 1 charging station, so no different than a standard outlet you would have in your home. We are also recommending that we add incentives to providing EVSE installed spaces. Those would be exempted from maximum parking requirements. We would also provide incentives by counting those installed spaces as 2 spaces towards minimum parking, and the EV capable spaces as 1.5 spaces towards minimum parking requirements. Additionally, we are proposing to limit the applicability to multi-unit dwellings, hotels, large-scale retail, and commercial standalone parking lots. So this would still be limited to parking lots of 25 spaces or more, but only for these uses. So other uses such as office, smaller scale retail would no longer be required to install charging stations, even if they had parking lots larger than 25 spaces. The logic behind the recommended uses for multi-unit dwellings, it's really providing residents with an opportunity to charge electric vehicles if they do not have a place where they can install chargers that they own. For example, if you don't own your home, you can't install a charger in your garage. So this would provide them with an opportunity. And then the hotels, large-scale retail, and commercial standalone parking lots are geared toward providing charging availability for visitors to the city and tourists. And lastly, we are proposing that if we have any residential developments that are receiving governmental financing, so for example, financing through the city, through the county, through the State Housing Finance Agency to do affordable housing, that we would allow them to meet the requirements by solely doing that EV capable infrastructure. So reserving that panel space in the electrical room and providing the raceway. We do believe that that's a balance that right now many of their residents may not have the income or own electric vehicles, but this would allow them to install chargers in the future if the demand so warranted. So in that case, instead of having 2% of spaces as EV capable and 2% installed, it would be a requirement for 4% of the spaces to be EV capable in the future. And that is the conclusion of my presentation.
Mary, in the grand scheme of things, do we envision, let's talk about a multi-unit dwelling, and they've got X number of EV-capable lots, spaces. Someone who lives there pulls their car in to charge it. Is it, and I don't have one, so I don't know how long it takes. I understand it takes a little while. Will they keep their car over? I mean, would that be their parking place? In other words, what I'm driving at, somebody comes in, they go to a space and charge, they go up to their apartment and have supper, go to bed. In the meantime, someone else comes in and that car is in the way. How do you envision landlords or apartment developers or hotels or whatever for controlling that? You see what I'm getting at? The 2% or whatever wouldn't be enough.
So we are not proposing any requirements that would be up to the individual businesses. They could put limits on it. For example, I believe the city has now put limits on our charging stations to say that you can use that charging station, but upon completion of charging or within a certain time frame, you need to move your vehicle. You can't leave it there indefinitely.
So we monitor that?
My understanding is we have put those in place, and I believe there may be a fee that comes into play if you stay there longer, and that's something I'd have to check with our parking folks, but I know I've been told that's been put in place. So it would be up to the landlord as to how they want to enforce it. If it's something they want to limit and say, you can only be here when you're charging or for a certain amount of time, or if they want to, or if they don't mind if someone parks there all night. Depending on the level of charging, a level 1 charger can take several hours to fully charge a vehicle. So overnight may not be unrealistic for a level 1 charger if that's what they're installing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Councilman.
So the Planning Commission made some refinements to, from the beginning, what was proposed was a blanket 2% mandate for all parking lots, right?
Correct. What it is today is all parking lots over 25 spaces.
So so there was just the 25 spaces, there wasn't any uses that were pulled out with the exception of single-family residential?
Correct.
Okay, so before single-family residential was included, now, if someone was to build a 26-unit townhome project, they would be required to put a charging station in?
If it's for a townhome project, no. So under today's code, if it were a townhome project, it was on one lot that had over 25 spaces for a parking lot, then yes. So it's really looking at it as a parking lot, not individual parking spaces. And when I say single family is exempt, it's really because single family, one house, one lot, we don't find lots with 25 spaces or more typically in single family developments. This would limit it to multi-unit dwellings. Townhouse is a different use type, so townhouses would no longer be subject to this.
Okay, that's helpful and I think a good thing. I don't intend to belabor this anymore. We've had a lot of discussion about it. I appreciate staff taking it back and the Planning Commission and taking it back up and bringing these revisions to us. I continue to be opposed. We have a lot of discussion about housing affordability at this council and in this community. It's one of the top priorities, and I continue to be opposed to mandates that are burdensome and create additional costs to the affordability in our community. So while I am certainly supportive of electric vehicles and anyone who wants to use them, I strongly believe philosophically that the market will dictate, and I think already is, that many of the developers who are out there putting in projects are going way above 2% because they see it's necessary for their project. And so I'm still opposed to this. I do appreciate all the work that's gone into it, but with regards to amendment number 8, I'm still opposed.
Okay. Any other comments from council right now? Yes, ma'am.
So I had mentioned before about, as far as affordability goes, first of all, we've made some provisions in here for affordable housing developments. I toured an affordable housing unit, not within the city limits, Estrella Landing, that's in the county. And I saw something really interesting that has to do with this, actually. They have a laundry room there, and they didn't pay anything for the laundry machines because there are providers, commercial laundry machine providers, who put the machines in there and they maintain them, and they also collect the revenue from them. And the same thing is true about EV charging. There are companies that will come and put in these EV chargers at no cost to the property owner. So I don't see it affecting affordable housing at all. If they can do it for laundry, and I know they do it for the EV chargers, I just don't think that's an issue at all.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that presentation. Now we'll open the public hearing for PH4. Now again, we're going to have 30 minutes for the public hearing. If you are in favor, you have 15 minutes in favor and 15 minutes opposed. So if you hear someone saying the same thing that you were going to say, you may want to consider your time. Okay? So, is anyone in favor or oppose this PH4? All right? And those who are in favor, we'll let you come first. State your name for us.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. My name is Sam Frank. My address is 127 Racine Drive. I don't have a specific matter before you all this evening. I'm a citizen of the city and interested in this. This is really unusual, but I'm actually coming to talk to you about what this is not about. So there's a component of the package that includes an amendment designed to make the legacy districts and the way that we manage protection of watersheds in the legacy districts consistent with the way that we manage watersheds in the new districts defined under the LDC. It's pretty straightforward. It makes good sense, and for what it's worth as a citizen, I'm absolutely in support of it. I had the opportunity to review written comments submitted to the city leading up to this hearing that made significant references to some pending development proposal for the Autumn Hall development, apparently in connection with this proposed text amendment. I'm baffled by that. I don't know what the connection would be, but I want to explain plainly and clearly that there are no proposals for a rezoning or a revision to a site plan for the Autumn Hall development in front of you today. There's no application pending, nothing in front of the Planning Commission, and to the extent that that may come up later in the hearing, I wanted to clarify that fact for you. With that said, if you have any questions for me after the later portions of the public hearing, I'm certainly glad to answer them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else want to speak on behalf of the support? All right. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. And please state your name, and when you're speaking, speak directly into the mic so that everyone in the audience can hear as well. Please.
Can you hear me? We're good.
You're
All
great.
Right. Thank you. My name's Tim Holder, and I'd like to speak to this issue. First of all, I want to thank the staff for doing an exceptional amount of homework and providing how other communities have handled this issue. The one thing I would point to in this is during new construction, there's this table on levels 1, 2, and 3. The EV capables are 300 per space during new construction and 2,500 during a retrofit. And then EV ready, it's 1,300 versus 6,300. So it's obviously way cheaper to do this ahead of time.
Absolutely.
Councilperson Andrew has pointed out how there's companies that are ready and willing to build them and retrieve the revenue afterwards. Now, the context of this is climate change. That's why we have electric vehicles. That's why we need electric charging positions. And we here in Wilmington know what happens with some of the ill effects of climate change. We are ground zero, well, Louisiana's ground zero for hurricanes, but we're in the line of them also. I have family that lives in California and suffer from forest fires. My brother lives in the San Francisco area, and a few years ago they had forest fires and they blew the smoke in that was so dense he couldn't see across the street for days. And breathing, they couldn't go outside. Breathing that air would whack you out. So I think we have to think about it in the bigger picture. I am very impressed that other communities are addressing this. I have a friend up in the DC area. He lives in apartments, and he's all frustrated because he's got an electric vehicle and he can't find apartment buildings that have hookups for charging his EV. So with that, I won't take any more of your time, but I really appreciate your consideration of this and hope that you have a due pass. It's the need for this is obvious. If it's been on the books for 2 years, I think it would just be a huge step backward to deny this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Those who are opposed? I see 1, 2. All right, I'll take the young man in the blue, and then you'll be next, sir. State your name and do speak in the mic.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, Mr.
Lift the
Mayor.
mic up to your neck. Put it right in your mouth. There you go.
Thank you, thank you. Good evening. Matt Childs, a resident here on Dogwood Drive. Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of City Council.
Matt.
My name is Matt Childs. I'm a resident of Dogwood Drive, the neighborhood that would be impacted by the amendment of Section 18 through 300 of our Land Development Code. I have a 16-month-old daughter who strolls with me up and down Dogwood Drive every afternoon, stopping to play with other neighborhoods and friends on our quiet, quaint little street. I'm here today to address a matter of significant concern to myself and many residents of our community on Dogwood Drive and adjoining neighborhoods. I urge you to strike down and not entertain the variance of City Code, Section 18 through 300, and any related amendments pertaining to the base density reduction for projects located within the watershed resource protection area, as well as the maximum density designated for residential property to receive density bonuses within a conservation land classification. I'm referencing 1202 Eastwood Drive specifically as an example. First and foremost, there is no justification for allowing high-density developments next to medium-density areas under the current setbacks. Our neighborhood is already overwhelmed. On Rogersville Road, we see pedestrians, including mothers with strollers, runners, and bikers, struggling to navigate safely as cars frequently exceed speed limits. There's no sidewalks, and there are no bike paths. Additionally, Dogwood Drive and Rogersville Road turn into lakes during heavy rain or hurricanes. Portions were completely flooded during and after Hurricane Florence, and this flooding persisted for weeks. The integrity of our neighborhood's character and infrastructure is at risk. High-density development in these areas will only exacerbate these existing problems. Secondly, removing wetlands, which serve as crucial natural habitats, will have severe impact on the floodplain and the Bradley Creek surrounding neighborhoods. Wetlands act as natural sponges, absorbing rainwater and mitigating flood risks. Limiting these vital areas will exacerbate flooding, endangering homes and property. Currently, as I understand it, the city is already redirecting water from College Road to Bradley Creek, or plans to. The combination of this rerouted and potential changes of water due to the new upcoming development at 1202 Eastwood Road, if approved to the amendment of Section 18 through 300 of the Land Development Code, could lead to catastrophic flooding when mixed with high tides and common tidal surges. The amendment of Section 18 through 300 puts our properties on Dogwood Drive at risk of being reclassified into a flood zone, significantly increasing our insurance costs and jeopardizing our safety and financial stability. Additionally, heavy rains and hurricanes already cause significant flooding on Rogersville Road. Adding more development without addressing these pre-existing conditions is reckless and short-sighted. We must prioritize the safety and well-being of our current residents over new developments that only exacerbate these problems. Furthermore, the proposed changes threaten local ecosystems, displacing endangered species and disrupting the delicate balance of our environment. This imbalance will ultimately affect the fisheries upon our local economy depends, and the long-term ecological and economic consequences of these changes are too severe to ignore. I stand before you because these proposed changes do not align with the city's stated commitment to protecting our properties from stormwater flooding and our fisheries from harm and extinction. Instead, they directly contradict these goals and negatively impact our community. Therefore, I'm calling on the City Council and the developers to conduct a comprehensive environmental impact study tied to the amendment of the Section 18 through 300 and related development projects. This study should be made available to the public, and a feedback period should be established to allow the community input and ensure transparency. We need to fully understand the ramifications of these proposed variances before moving forward. In conclusion, I implore you to consider the broader implications of these variances. The protection of our homes, our environment, and our community's future depends on your decision. Please strike down the variance to City Code Section 18 through 300 and any amendments relating to it, and stand with us in safeguarding our integrity and safety of our neighborhoods. Thank you, and history is watching.
question for Mr. Childs.
Okay. All right. Excuse me, ma'am.
Mr. Childs, I have a question if you would come back, please. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a good
So,
question.
thank you all for being here tonight. Yesterday was the first time that I heard about the opposition to this. I had one email. And then basically in the last 36 hours, that's up to 50, 60, 75 emails the last time I checked. So I think that we're actually at a point where you're right, we do want to fully understand, we want to have a conversation, and I'm hoping that staff is going to be responsive after everybody has been heard. So can you just briefly tell us the history of how you learned about this and how this group came to be organized on this topic so quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. So we live right behind the proposed development on Dogwood Drive, and so there's been a lot of questions. What's going to be put onto that property? Is it going to be high density, low density? What is it going to be? There hasn't been much information, and so naturally, residents have been seeking out information on our own. There was a hearing sign a couple weeks ago, and I think that something was pushed, but that's really what sparked us coming together and organizing. I'd say we're pretty grassroots, but everyone's concerned in that area because they don't understand what's being built there and how that's going to affect their neighborhoods. And with the flooding, as I mentioned, and the traffic and foot traffic, it's kind of like bubbling up to concern, and that's why you have so many folks here behind me. Yep.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Now remember your time. Okay.
Sorry?
I was saying I want you to remember your time so that we can get your other friends to speak.
Okay. I would like to say that I think the first that many people heard of it was
Ma'am.
notices went
Excuse me,
out.
ma'am. Could you state your name, please?
I'm sorry, Margaret Hickman, and I live on Rill Road. In fact, I live on the corner of Rill and Teal, and I can look at the bridge that goes over onto Autumn Hall from my front window. Some notices went out regarding a Board of Adjustment meeting last week when there was an item on the agenda with a request for a zoning variance from the Cape Fear development. That was ultimately pulled, but when that notice went out to the neighborhood, that's what got everybody going. So, I'm asking tonight that the council not approve the proposed changes to Section 8, Chapter 18, Article 4, Section 18 of the Code of Ordinances. The most disturbing aspect of this proposal is the use of density bonuses and the opportunity to use these bonuses to develop land in conservation areas. In one place in the text, it is stated that these would be granted according to, quote, exceptional design criteria. Now, I did some reading to try to see how these bonuses were used in other areas, and at least in other areas, they were used for things like affordable housing units or green energy efficient construction, things like that. However, in Section 1800-300C, projects do not even have to do this under certain circumstances. For example, if new buildings have achieved or are working to achieve LEED requirements for certification as green buildings, they are exempt, despite the fact that this does not have to be demonstrated until 6 months after the completion of construction. It seems obvious that the damage will have already occurred. This is only one type of way of getting around getting these bonuses, or even not even having to meet these exceptional design criteria. Another problem with this proposed change is that there is no provision for public notice or input when a developer plans to develop a conservation area. At the moment, a developer has to apply for a variance. There is public notice. There is a meeting. If this goes through, none of this will come to the attention of the people who will be affected by the changes. So, to answer the question raised by the gentleman who spoke a little while ago, who said it was a mystery to him why Autumn Hall keeps coming up, one reason is because of the zoning variance that was requested recently, but also because it does relate to this, because if this goes through, Autumn Hall will use these provisions to develop this area without any input from the neighborhood. And so if you actually will be making a decision about Autumn Hall when you make a decision about this tonight, you really
Okay.
will be doing that.
All right, now, Miss Margaret, Miss Margaret, I'm going to ask you to end your speech because I'm going to give those guys like a little time to talk.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will end it.
Thank you
The
very
flooding
much.
and everything. what the
Thank you
other
very
gentleman
much.
said.
Okay, and the three. And those of you that are in the line.
Howard Finger.
Thank
Good
you,
evening.
Howard.
I
Mr.
only
Howard.
found out this morning, and Miss Andrews was kind enough to respond to me, and she put me in touch with the AICP Assistant Director, Brian Chambers, who in fact explained what this is all about. And one of the things he said in this notice to me, or this to the board also, obviously, this has nothing to do with residential density. It's impervious coverage is the primary cause of bad water. Primary. So I'd like to know what he means by that. Is that 51% and density is 49%? He didn't explain that, and I assume you have an answer for me on that. Does anybody have an answer on that?
Yes, sir. We'll discuss that because I think Brian
Okay.
is here.
So that didn't make much
Where's
sense.
that?
It's just a lot of words.
Excuse me.
And he also said that residential density is no longer necessary or appropriate now. What does that mean? What does necessary or appropriate mean?
Right. Well, yeah.
Okay. And why were the legacy districts fathered in and excluded from the law? Why do we want to include them now?
Okay.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Hello,
Name-
City Council. My name is Megan Dittman, and I live at the end.
Yeah. Right. You have to go there. Okay, Megan, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Megan Dittman, and I live at the end of Bradley Creek, known as the headwaters of Bradley Creek. My front yard is a saltwater tidal marsh. I currently live in a flood zone as of 2018 after Florence hit, and I was rezoned by FEMA in a flood zone. But prior to that, I was never in a flood zone. As Matt previously stated, my friend Matt, my neighbor Matt, rezoning wetlands for commercial residential use will increase flooding for those of us in the surrounding area. I don't know if you're aware, but 1 acre of wetlands absorbs up to 1 million gallons of water. The proposed area that Cape Fear Commercial Development that I've heard is looking at in this Autumn Hall area around the lake with the Cross City Trail, that's 30 acres of wetland that we have heard they want to build on. So that's 30 million gallons of water that won't be absorbed in the next hurricane. So if these wetlands are built on, if you pass this amendment for, because it's very evident to all of us that we believe the Cape Fear Commercial wants to do something in that area, we must ask ourselves, where will that 30 million gallons of water go? So the problem for those of us, for everyone that's here, that lives on Teal, the south end of Trowbridge, and Headwater Cove, also over on Rogersville, is that we're at much lower elevation than the surrounding areas where Autumn Hall is in the proposed development. So think of them 15, 20 feet above sea level, and we're like 11 down to 2 or 3 feet above sea level. So if they build on these wetlands, these waters will have nowhere else to go but downward. Okay, so think of that. The wetlands won't be there to absorb. The water will just run down to all of our neighborhoods. The other issue is that because I live at the foot of the Bradley Creek and on a tidal marsh, when you have that surge, that tidal surge from the hurricane, those waters are gonna rush in as well. So these people here, we're all in the pancake situation or the perfect storm of a major disaster if we don't have wetlands and we don't have trees to absorb water. We're also very concerned because, as you all are aware, and you should be concerned too, I hope, as our city council, the big insurance companies such as Allstate and State Farm are pulling out of high-risk communities because they cannot afford to insure communities that have not thoughtfully planned and developed their communities. So even Even if they don't pull out entirely, which is a risk for sure, increased flooding will most certainly drive up our premiums. I already paid $2,000 a year just for my flood insurance. In addition to the flooding issue, wetlands play an important role in absorbing CO2. Of course, there's the beautiful wildlife. We see sea turtles, egrets, and pelicans in this marsh. And Matt brought up the fisheries. This will most definitely impact our local fisheries because of the very delicate ecosystem that exists between wetlands and the ocean. A lot of species start their lives in wetlands and move to the oceans. When those species are gone, it will impact our local fisheries. Our restaurants won't have local fish to deliver anymore, and it will most certainly impact our local economy.
Okay, now, thank you. I'm gonna ask the next person to come up, okay? Thank you.
Can I just make one
Thank you.
last comment? That's an important one, I believe.
Okay, and.
I'll be
okay,
15
hold on.
seconds.
Let me explain to you. The lady behind, the young man in the blue, you won't have a chance to speak. I'm sorry. Thank you. All right, yes, ma'am. One comment.
It's my understanding that Charlie Rivenbark is sitting here on our
The
city
young
council.
man in the blue, you can still speak. You were standing up. I'm sorry.
It's my understanding that Charlie Rivenbark is also an SVP at Cape Fear Commercial Development that is interested in building in Autumn Hall. We think this is a clear conflict of interest, and we would ask you, Charlie, that you recuse yourself from this vote.
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Hold on.
Thank you.
Hold- Mr. Rivenbark. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Just the way it works is you give them to the clerk, and she'll take it, and we'll receive them. Please state your name.
She has flood maps you need to see.
Okay, please state your names for the
My
record.
name is Joe Rumsey. I live at 318 Real Road in College Acres.
Thank you.
I've lived there 40 years. I'm an old-retired engineer. I take with great interest what goes on. My property abuts the flood zone. You see these maps. One of them shows the area that is proposed to be rezoned to allow construction. The other map in blue is the flood range. That's the floodplain, which engulfs all of this. All the property they want to annex or change is in the floodplain. Now, right now, it appears to be three sections to the Clear Run project you just finished. It's like $12 million. Right now, they did the middle section. None of that really puts a lot of extra water in there. The upstream section is New Center Drive. They haven't brought that on board yet. But the pipes that they're putting in the ground are 4 feet in diameter to accommodate that flow. That's Walmart, Lowe's, Bob King, that whole flow through there is scheduled to come down through there. When that water comes down in our area and the tidal comes up against it in a hurricane, that's what you're going to get there. You're going to get a 12.5 foot of flow. That's historical. That's too much. I'm not sure why they want to do this. Or maybe they're ignoring this issue. But this is significant. Look at the houses that are under flood in that right there. That's the ones in College Acres. The young lady before me talks about other areas that are lower. I'm totally against changing this into something of the nature they're talking about. They're talking about high density. There's no call for that. There's great property in there. It can be developed properly, but not high density. The more impervious surface you put on the ground, the more water flows down in there, and that's what's going on.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I
yes,
would
ma'am.
ask that you please indulge me and allow the woman who was also in line to speak, because we don't even know if she's speaking on the same
Okay.
or a different topic than everybody else.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Come on up. And please state your name and your address. Thank you.
Thank you for your indulgence,
Yes,
Mayor
ma'am.
Pro Tem, council members. My name is Valerie Robertson. I have Lived in Wilmington and driven a car here since 1994. And I want to speak only to the electric vehicle component of this, because that's what I know.
Okay.
And I'm really pleased to see that we have EV charging stations available around town, a few. I've read the proposed amendments to the land use development ordinance being discussed. I applaud the inclusion of EV charging stations in the ordinance. I've also read the minutes of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee from their April 8th meeting and the attachments that went with it. A couple of comments. Wilmington in particular is an ideal location for a really strong EV community. Two of the big obstacles to driving an EV are it gets cold in the winter and it doesn't work. We don't really have that problem. Another obstacle is mountainous areas. If I want to go on a hill, I have to drive over a bridge. So it's really an ideal place, and I would anticipate that with the removal of obstacles like absence of charging stations that are reliable, that we might actually be a leader in this technology and its use. As I was reading through the attachments with, I hope I didn't touch anything. As I was reading through the attachments, I found a chart that discussed, it's a calculator. It's an investment calculator for a CP6000 Level 2 dual port 80A chip initial investment calculator. And I think the Level 2s are great. The third one up is just really exorbitantly priced. But if we're going to make these investments, Level 2 might be worth looking at. The electrical make-ready cost, $10,000. Total initial investment, $22,007. Total net revenue in 5 years, $107,568. Number of years to break even on total initial investment, 1.1 years. There's a lot of money to be made by somebody by installing these. And I don't know if that's the developer, I don't know who that is, but there's money to be made for a technology that we really need, we should embrace, in my opinion. And I'm glad that this is mentioned in this ordinance, but I think it should be 4% instead of 2%. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you much. Okay. Yes, sir. And then we're going to hear from the staff. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I have a kind of a procedural question, maybe appropriate for the city attorney. It seems like we have, before the staff comes up and addresses some of the questions we've heard about amendment number 4, it seems like amendment number 4 and amendment number 8 are the two that maybe warrant more discussion, or maybe there's, you know, some deliberation that has to happen further. But it seems to me that there's consensus for amendments 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. Haven't heard anything or any discussion. So I just procedurally, are we able to pull out 4 and 8 and approve all the rest of them? How's that work?
Councilmember Waldo, good question. I think it would depend on what motion is forthcoming from council, and we can address that when it comes. I think potentially we could do that. One thing we'll have to sort through is in the presentation made by staff, there are amendments and they're numbered. However, in the resolution, they're listed in different sections. So we just need to cross-reference that and make sure we're making those adjustments depending on what motion comes forward.
Okay, we'll see how the discussion goes. Thank you.
Okay. Staff, we've been hearing a lot about the Autumn Hall, and can you bring us some clarity and maybe address, not maybe, if you can, address the questions that were asked by, especially those who
Tim,
opposed.
can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Started.
Sorry.
What was the genesis of this coming forward? Was this presented, was this offered up by anybody, or was this staff generated?
Staff recognized an inconsistency in how the current zoning districts were being treated versus the legacy districts, and this was to bring consistency across both codes.
Okay. Is this affects, obviously it affects the entire city limits?
All those legacy
Where
districts
applicable.
across the city limits, yes, sir.
So it's not just this one, it could be anywhere.
That's
Just
correct.
like when we do rezonings, we do a rezoning in Princess Place Drive, it affects the entire city.
That is correct.
Okay, so and we do that all the time, and if I'm going to be confined to every time a rezoning or anything that could affect the company that I work for, I don't need to be up here. What?
Order. Order,
You all
please.
are confusing Cape
Thank
Fear
you.
Development with Cape Fear Commercial Realty. I'm an independent broker, and that's it. I don't have anything to do with development of anything that Cape Fear Development does, and I'm not going to recuse myself because this is a citywide. It was not brought up by Cape Fear Development. It was staff generated.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now, Brian, what were you going to say? Order, please. We're not going to do that. I promise you, we're not going to do that. Okay, yes, sir.
There were a few questions that I remember. If I forget any, please remind me. I'm happy to answer any other questions. I believe the gentleman asked why we're bringing the legacy districts forward for this amendment. And again, as I explained to Mr. Ravenbart, is to make it consistent across the code. The legacy districts are subject to the old code. They were not brought forward because they're antiquated districts. We didn't want to do away with them, but just didn't want them to expand. So they're subject to the code that existed prior to December 1st, 2021. The old code limits impervious coverage and density. We brought the new code forward in front of council. The new code limits the intensity of development in these areas to just impervious coverage. When we look at a rooftop, it could have one unit underneath that rooftop, or it could have 4 units underneath that rooftop. We only care about the rooftop. It's the impervious coverage that has a direct impact on the water quality and runoff in the tidal creeks, and that's why we made that change. And tonight, this amendment would make it consistent across the old code and the new, so it's fair and equitable across the city.
So the code was developed in order to make it equitable across the city, or the same?
Yes, sir. We want to be fair and consistent when we're applying the code, and this is something that staff recognized that was neither of those.
Okay. Councilman Spears.
Hi, Bern.
Good evening.
So the concerns that we're hearing, are they not relevant? Are they not valid?
I think every concern is valid. I'm just trying to explain the genesis and why we're bringing it forward. We wanted to treat the development within the legacy districts and the districts that applied across the city the same way.
Right, but and I appreciate that. But the question is if we go forward with this in the manner that has been presented to us, will they be impacted the way that they're presenting it to us?
I don't know if I can answer that question. I mean, they're going to be, they would, to treat everyone, the properties within the legacy districts the same as all the other districts in the city, they would be treated as the same as all the other residents in the city.
Okay, order.
So
Thank you.
I may have to agree with Luke and agree that, maybe we need more discussion on this or something.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and then I have a question for Brian. My point was if we were going to be approving the majority of the amendments that are in here, which are fairly benign, and I don't think there's any disagreement with the majority of them, would we bifurcate the vote essentially to pull out 4 and 8, and then vote on 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7? That was my point. But I do have a question. There's a lot of talk about building, whether or not this would allow building on wetlands. CAMA regulates that pretty heavily. We don't have any jurisdiction on whether or not we can allow wetlands to be built on.
This amendment will not allow any disturbance of wetlands. Our code specifically protects wetlands. It requires a vegetative buffer around wetlands and additional setbacks from the wetlands. So this would not allow any development in a wetland.
Over and above CAMA, do CAMA regulate
Camera or
that?
the core. Yes, sir.
Okay. So my question is, how did we get here? I mean, I read a number of the letters about Autumn Hall. How did we get to this point? What was there not enough PR? Was there what? Help me out.
I'll try to answer that question. I mean, I'm just going to reiterate what staff's goal was, is to make the code consistent across the entire city, not just in one portion, which is a legacy district versus what's not a legacy district. How this happened, I can't really explain that. I think there was a meeting last week or a week or two ago about the Board of Adjustment where the folks at Autumn Hall were requesting an amendment. And then this was coming up completely separate. I had to go back and read that amendment. I wasn't even sure it was happening. I was focused on the legacy districts and the code amendments that we're bringing forward tonight.
Is it possible that what happened at the planning committee with Autumn Hall kind of made this appear like that's what's going to happen here? Or
I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't want to say. From what I've gathered, that seems to be what occurred.
okay, Madam, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
What are our options? Now I understand Councilman Luke says we can pull. He would want to suggest we pull out like items P4 and.
Again, an interest of moving business along would be to approve the ones that we all agree on, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. And then, I mean, if we need to have discussion on 4 and 8, outside of that, we can do it. I was simply offering up some form of expeditious behavior for this meeting.
Okay.
I think a couple of months ago or a few meetings ago, we did something similar. The first time that one of the related items is here tonight, we kind of separated it out and went back to the Planning Commission. That's not the request here. It depends on what motion comes forward, Mayor Pro Tem, from your body. For example, if there was a motion to approve certain items, and they're listed in sections in the proposed ordinance, those could be considered. Obviously, it would take a majority vote of council to, move forward on anything. But if the body wanted to take a part out and then vote on the rest of it, I think we can manage that. I just think it depends on what the motion is that's forthcoming from the body, if that makes sense.
Okay, and taking it out, we would be asking for further study, or?
No, I mean, probably I would assume that we'll either approve all or a portion of them this evening, as we're being asked to. Perhaps, if there is interest from other members of the board to continue item number 4 specifically, I believe there probably is interest from the board to vote on everything with the exception of item number 4. Maybe item number 4, when we have a full council to include the mayor present, would be appropriate, but.
Okay. Now, I see the names here. Are you guys wanting to speak, Kevin, or?
Well, I just want to clarify what I was saying. So I'm on board with having further discussion about this amendment number 4, but not the EV. I'm in support of the EV amendment item.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, yes, sir.
I think that the amendments they all can stand alone. I mean, if we only had one amendment coming up here, it's not depending on the other 6 or 7. So I don't see why we can't break that out. I mean, do you, Sean?
No, sir.
I know you
did
keep
a better
saying
job
it depends
of,
on what the motion is, but I mean, I don't see why we couldn't break out and vote on the ones that we all feel comfortable with.
Okay.
No, sir. I think that's correct.
But I have a question I want to ask Brian. Is there anything tonight let's just, looking ahead, let's just suppose this, we passed everything. Is there anything in that ordinance cleanup that has any negative effect over and above what's already there in place now?
No.
Thank you.
So that means then that ordinance wouldn't affect, okay, explain that.
If I understood Mr. Ravmar correctly, he's asking me if the changes proposed would be any worse than what's already in the current code. And the answer is no, it's going to make it consistent with the current code.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would, I'm going to throw something out here. I would probably motion that we continue item number 4 and go ahead and vote on everything but item number 4. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay. You want to make that a motion?
So yes, again,
No, I'm sorry.
for everyone in the.
Excuse me,
Yep.
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
Procedural, you have not closed the public hearing, but the clerk has several remarks that I need to read into the record before you get to the motion part.
I
Okay.
did not make a motion. I was simply just putting it out there to the body and to the folks present, out of respect for all the time they had here today, that I believe it would be appropriate. And I intend to make a motion to continue item number 4 while we gather more information about it.
All right. Brian? Okay, Brian, is there anything else you want to share? Is there anything else?
No, I would just ask council to, if you can, give us some direction as to the type of information you'd like us to bring back so we can be prepared to answer questions at the next meeting.
Okay, we can do that. All right, I'm going to ask Ms. Penny, is there any other comments that you want to read as relates to what
Thank
you've
you.
received today?
Mayor Pro Tem, there were several comments that were submitted by the deadline, which was Monday at 12 noon on our electric form. Lonnie Hashimoto from 329 Holiday Hills Drive. EV charging is increasingly important to visitors. Home charging can serve locals, but if we want tourism dollars, we must provide the infrastructure. Joanne Durham from Curie Beach, North Carolina. Please require electric vehicles charging stations in commercial development. We all need to do our part to lowering our carbon footprint. Jane McPaul from 1713 South 41st Street. It is important to have public charging stations for electric vehicles because the electric companies, through the legislature, have not allowed businesses to charge for electricity. The electric companies are the only ones who can legally charge for electricity. Until this changes, we must provide it through our municipality. Johanna Clancy from Castle Hayne, North Carolina. I fully support the amendment calling for the required introduction of EV charging stations in new commercial developments in our city. The switch from gas-powered electrics to vehicles is a vital first step in fighting climate change. Without charging stations, this change will not occur. James from 1802 Grace Street. I support EV charging requirements. I would find some way to incentivize the developer in the city to enable more stations with a preference towards rapid charging stations. Also, I think a 30% surcharge ought to be shared with the city with the bias towards no surcharge on rapid charging stations on parking lots related to food stores and pharmacies. Food stores ought to be defined so as to include 50% of the floor area devoted to food products. Where the owner developer installs solar panels with batteries, there will be no bill for power. Duke Energy 24/7, so there would be an incentive to install at least some panels. Thinking ahead to a new regulation covered parking with solar panels on top has much to commend itself. Lots of these are in evidence in the southwest of the country. Electric vehicle charging stations for the holders of state handicap licenses might command some balanced density incentive. A hot car is a challenge to a handicapped person. Ellen from Hillborough Road. The future will be more electric vehicles. We should prepare for that by requiring public charging stations. We should be ahead of the curve. And one more. From Lessa Crocker, Wilmington, North Carolina. I strongly encourage our city council to adopt measures to move forward with the placement of electric car charging stations at commercial businesses throughout the city as we join the nation goal to reduce our carbon footprint. And William and Kimberly Black of 728 Jacobs Creek Lane. We fully support passage of ordinances stated above. We have a large piece of property We would like to build a detached garage, mother-in-law quarters. This amendment will allow us to do this. Thank you.
Okay. We've had enough discussion. Any other questions from the council? All right, and then I'm going to close public hearing, and then we'll take a vote. Yes, sir.
With regards to amendment number 4, I did have a couple other questions. We don't need answers for them now, but if we're going to continue it, which it feels like that's what's going to happen, I have a couple of questions to prepare for that next meeting. I'd like to know if the change in amendment number 4 will actually hinder protection of the watershed. I think I alluded to that, but some finalization of that. And then will this change make the protection of the watershed consistent throughout the city? And take those, and when we discuss item number 4. Thank you.
All right. And in item 4, I would also ask the question about how does it affect the Autumn Hall, I'm sorry, project. All right. Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and then we'll take the wishes of the council, and I'm consenting that we're going to pull out P4. We'll take that in a motion. Is that correct, Sean? Are we good with that, sir? Yeah. What's the motion on the floor? Okay.
Yes, sir, and I'll just remind council that any motion does require a consistency statement, which you should have in front of you. Thank you.
Okay. Now, even if we pull out number 4 and say we're going to do it later, okay, then the consistency say which one would we read to say that?
If the motion is to approve, then the motion would be to approve the other sections. And my recollection in conferring with Ms. Painter is that if 4 is pulled by council, that would impact Section 4 and Section 8 in the ordinance, if that's helpful. So potentially those, depending on the motion, potentially those will be the items that there was some discussion about continuing.
Okay. So, all right. Yes, ma'am. Salette.
I move to approve the amendments number 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8 to the Land Development Code and find them to be consistent with the relevant policies in the comprehensive plan based on the application materials and the information provided at the public hearing and in the staff report, and to find approval of those specific amendments are reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The proposed changes will correct issues uncovered during implementation of the new Land Development Code.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, get a second to that. I'm sorry. Have you got
Okay.
the second?
Yeah, second by Kevin.
We need to hear from Ms. Painter about the tie between Amendment 4 and Amendment 8, because she believes that if Amendment 4 is not passed, Amendment 8 will be affected. Is that not correct, Ms. Painter?
Is related to Section 4 when it comes to, so that it is basically removing or striking the applicability of MX districts from the exceptional design criteria. So the Section 4 and Section 8 are related. And so if you're taking out Section 4, we would recommend taking out Section 8 as well.
Excuse me. We're talking about Amendment 4 versus Amendment 8, so not sections of Amendment 4. So
and I apologize for this. When staff presents the amendments to you, a lot of amendments affect multiple sections, so we package them into one. Those numbers don't necessarily correspond to the sections of the ordinance. The sections of the ordinance go in numerical order. So sections 4 and section 8 of the actual ordinance relate to amendment number 4 that you want to pull.
Correct. So we want both of those sections excluded because they're with Amendment 4. But we want the actual Amendment 8 as part of the motion to approve.
Yeah, which is, I believe that's sections 10, 11, 12, and 14.
Whatever's in the amendment, the consistency statement talks about the amendments.
Councilmember Andrews, my understanding of your motion is that you're asking to approve all items in the proposed ordinance except for the two sections, which are Section 4 and Section 8, dealing with the MX district. Is that correct?
I'm approving every amendment except for Amendment 4. Whatever sections go in Amendment 4, I'm asking to exclude from the motion. Yes.
Thank you.
So let me ask the question. Are the legacy districts together with the electric vehicle amendment or not? That's what
No.
she's saying.
They are separate.
Okay, so we want everything except for the legacy districts and the pervious surface
That's what we want pulled.
item. Yeah, we want all of that pulled in its totality. I speak your language, Select.
Okay. Is that, okay, are we on legal terms? Are we clear with that? Sean, or,
Yes, and I'm looking at Ms. Painter to confirm, but my read of the ordinance is the two sections of the ordinance that deal with the legacy districts are Section 4 and Section 8. And I understand that that does not correspond with the presentation that was given. But am I reading that correctly, Ms. Painter? Thank you.
so the motion on the floor, is the motion on the floor correct?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, one more thing.
Okay, let me answer that for me. Can you answer that for me, and then I'll let you speak, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, and I did not intend in any way, shape, or form to speak with Councilmember Celeste Andrews, but my understanding is that she confirmed my question for removal of those two sections, that being Section 4 and Section 8, and her motion is to approve the remaining sections.
Okay. Yes, sir. Kevin.
Are we? Not that I don't believe you all, but
All right.
40 years.
Good. Okay. So the motion is on the floor. It's been called for.
Discussion. Just
Unreadiness discussion.
a point of record, I again, with Amendment 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7, I am fully supportive of, but Amendment 8 regarding mandating electric vehicle usage, I am not in support of. So I guess with the motion that's on the floor, I will have to vote nay, but just want it for the record that it's because of item number 8.
Okay. Got it. All right. The motion is on the floor. Now it's ready for its passage. All in favor of the said motion, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. So it is passed 4 yea, 2 nay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Yes. Okay. Now.
I have a question, point of
Yes,
order.
sir. Question, Mr. Davis.
Is that just going to be continued to the next meeting, or do we need to continue it to a date certain, or does it automatically roll over?
We need a date certain would be preferable. We also need a second reading.
Okay. So do we need time for staff to address those questions?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
I think you need to waive the second reading on the initial amendment or initial motion, and then we can get into the discussion of when and what needs to come back.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion to waive second reading. Anyone? Okay, been moved by Councilmember Salat and second.
It was messed
Wasn't
up
for
on the.
this.
Okay.
What's it? Okay, can I help? Are we
So
clear?
we need to go back one.
No? The screen is shut.
There we go.
Oh, okay. So now we're motioning to waive second reading. Right. All right. And that was motioned by Salat and seconded by Councilmember Joyner. All in favor of, all in favor of the motion, let me know by the sign aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and that's unanimous that we'll waive the second reading. Now, Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think now if you wanted to entertain a motion to continue the remaining items to a date specific, we have two questions that Councilman Waddell, I believe, said he wanted answered with regard to the proposed amendment. And those are the only two items that we have to bring back to you. So if you would make a motion to a date specific, and then we could continue that item.
Okay.
When is the date of our next meeting? And is that sufficient time for staff to gather that information?
The next two meetings are June 4 and June 18, I believe.
Yes,
Is
that's
June-
correct.
June 4th enough
June
time?
4th. Just a moment. Will June 4th give you time? How about June 18th?
I make a motion to continue to June 18th, date certain.
Is there a second? All right, been moved and properly seconded that we continue this item to June 18th meeting. Motion by Mr. Luke Waddell, seconded by David Joyner. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that's unanimous. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Next item to come before us is ordinances, correct? All right. Oh, public hearing 5, yeah, P5. P5 is an annual action plan for the CDBG and home funds. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Rachel Lecoe, our Housing and Neighborhood Services Director, will overview this item for us.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, Rachel, we're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Tonight is the public hearing for allocation of community development block grant funds and home funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. This is just a public hearing. There's no action taken. We have posted the draft plan for public comment, which began last week and will run through June 17th. Shown here are the ways we advertise the plan to receive comments. We will come back to you on June 18th for your adoption of the plan. This final plan will include any or all comments received during this time and responses as appropriate. Just as a background, the annual action plan builds off of the 5-year consolidated plan. City Council adopted this in June of 2022. It included a needs assessment, housing market analysis, and strategic plan to set the goal for 5 years. This year is the annual action plan. And then at the end of the fiscal year, you'll hear about our consolidated annual performance evaluation report, the CAPER, where we report on our accomplishment and progress. These plans are all informed by the other plans of the city, including the Rise Together campaign, the comprehensive plan, our assessment of fair housing, and of course, our newly strategic plan. In the consolidated plan, several strategic goals were outlined. They're shown here. Before we get into our allocation, I just wanted to share how funding looks at the federal level this year. We saw similar allocations of the Community Development Block Grant, but home funds did see a 17% decrease at the federal level. We saw that ourselves here with a 19% decrease. So just shown here is the entitlement and general fund allocations and budget over the past 3 years, where you can see that those federal funds going down. This is not due to any performance issues, but just changes in the federal allocations, again, at that federal level, and also just the way that our population has been changing. So we incorporate all of that to meet our goals, shown here, increasing affordable housing options, expanding and improving access to funding sources for affordable housing, and supporting public service programs. This is how we intend to spend our funds over the next fiscal year. These projects that are listed include ones that we're carrying over from previous years, some that we've received letters of intent or interest in, and just what we have for our in-house programs. Again, this funding builds off of carryover and current funding that we're going to be expecting. What you can see here is really how we're focusing this plan off of the strategic plan. Included is instead of just looking at homeless services for that public service allocation, we're also including crime prevention, and we're also allocating about $400,000 for public works projects. That's really leaning into more of that community development, neighborhood services lens, that those fundings would be designed to make improvements to public facilities, infrastructure, accessibility improvements, and capital support for community facilities. They would be limited to low-income communities, and we would be really focusing, like I said, on that community development. So that is the plan. Again, just kind of focusing on some of the homeless services and crime prevention allocation from that community development block grant, how we fund the Cape Fear Continuum of Care through some general funds, and as well as our year one of our recommended funding for that human services grant. As I mentioned, this plan is out for public comment. We'll be receiving public comments through June 17th, and we'll be back with a resolution to adopt the plan to you. That is all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll open for public hearing. Anyone in the public wish to speak in favor or in opposition? City Clerk, have you had any comments received? None. Council, do you have any questions? Okay, none. Then we'll close the public hearing. And now we'll go to ordinance, item number 1. Ordinance 1 is an ordinance making supplemental appropriation in the amount of $9,945 to the Special Purpose Fund to complete longleaf pine savanna restoration across 45 acres at Halliburton Park. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Amy Beatty, our Parks and Recreation Director, will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. As the title suggests, this is an ordinance appropriating supplemental funds in the amount of $9,945 as a grant award from the Nature Conservancy through the Federal Fish and Wildlife Association for longleaf pine restoration at Halliburton Park. The funds will go to support activities such as hardwood understory removal, wiregrass planting, and controlled burning in an effort to for longleaf pine resiliency and conservation efforts. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions from council? Okay. Next, then I'll ask for the wishes of the council to vote on item 01. Okay, I got it. Okay, motion by Charlie and seconded by somebody on that side. So, okay. All in favor of the motion, let it know by sign aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. All right, those opposed? Okay, none. Then we'll ask for the wishes of a second reading. We want to waive second reading. All right. Been motioned by Brother Joyner and seconded by, I believe it was, yep. All in favor of the number, sign aye. Aye. Aye, waiving second reading, and it's done. Okay, next item is reports. We have for the Council Appointments Committee, Board and Commissions, Councilmember Charlie Robinbaugh.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The Appointments Committee met on May the 6th, 2024. I serve as the chair of that, along with Councilmember Luke Waddell and Councilmember Celeste Andrews. And I'd like to thank up front the City Clerk, Ms. Sidbury, and her staff, and also the City Attorney's Office we're going through some pretty intense appointments, and the extra work that's been coming out of the clerk's office and the attorney's office sure has helped us. I want to thank you. I present the following for your council consideration for the Greater Downtown Special Area Plan Steering Committee. For neighborhoods, we've appointed Andrea Arth to represent the downtown core, Dennis McGarry, Historic Wilmington, Anthony Peel, Northside and Love Grove. Community organizations appoint Rhonda Bellamy, Arts Council. Travis Gilbert, represent Historic Wilmington Foundation. Business and Development appoint Stephanie Norris as a developer of affordable housing. Appoint Terry Espy at Downtown Business Alliance. Appoint Andy Hewitt, developer of Greater Downtown. Governmental agencies appoint Stephanie Ayers for the North Carolina Ports. Appoint Stephanie Willis, New Hanover County Schools. Public Safety, we appoint Jason Nichols, Wilmington Police Department. Appoint Reverend Linda Higgins, Dry Pond and the Bottom neighborhoods. Appoint Dana Sargent from the Southside neighborhood. Appoint Suzanne Workman, the streetcar suburbs. Appoint Reverend Jermaine Armour, faith-based. Appoint Christina Haley with Wilmington WDI. Appoint Zeke Nathans, developer Greater Downtown. Appoint Mike Normando, developer of Greater Downtown. Appoint David Canoy, Cape Fear Community College. And appoint Wendy Gianni King, WFD, Wilmington Fire Department. Moving on with the Historic Preservation Commission, reappoint Joan Keston as an at-large with a term to expire 5/8/28. The Loan Review Board would be reappoint Mike Moran at-large with a term to expire 5/15/26. New Hanover County City of Wilmington Community Relations Advisory Committee, appoint Genevieve Worth, better known as Jenna Worth, from the business community with a term to expire 9/20/26. The City of Wilmington, New Hanover County Commission for Women reappoint Olivia Timms or Thames, depending on how she pronounces it, with a term to expire 5/19/27, and reappoint Tara Hicks with a term to expire 6/18/27. Downtown Parking Advisory Committee reappoint Sean Breedlove, Cape Fear Community College, with a term to expire 5/16/27. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board reappoint Zach Gilbert with a term to expire 7/13/27. Sister City Commission appoint Ashley Sansing from New Hanover County Schools with a term to expire 9/1/25. Appoint Lindsay Brooks at-large with a term to expire 9/1/26. Thalian Hall Center for the Performing Arts, Inc., appoint Elisa Harris from the user group with a term to expire 6/30/27, and appoint Annette Freeman at-large with a term to expire 6/30/27 as well. Wilmington Tree Commission, appoint Craig Brink, a term to expire 6/18/27, and appoint Bridget Callahan with a term to expire 6/18/27 as well. The Zoning Board of Adjustment, appoint Zachary Nichols Jr. with a term to expire 4/15/27. And the Joint City of Wilmington, New Hanover County Workforce Housing Advisory Committee, appoint Marshall Pickett to fill vacancy from the business education world and with a term to expire 8/20/26. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I offer these up for council consideration.
Okay. That's a motion. Is there a second? Second by Luke Wardell. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, it's so ordered. You don't need another vote.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm so sorry. There was one that was left off that was on the amended revised document that you should have had, appointing Reverend Brock Meyer as the other faith-based. That should have been as well included.
Yeah, it's on the sheet. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Nope.
It's okay.
Okay.
I don't even know the gentleman, but I'm sure I'd like him. I don't want to.
Okay. All right.
And Madam Clerk, if I might just add on the Wilmington Tree Commission, I believe you have Craig, I believe his actual surname is Tenbrink. It's Ten space Brink. Yeah.
Okay.
We did correct that, but we didn't carry it over. But it is 10. That's his middle. Yeah, we got it.
Okay. Thank you for those corrections. All in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
All right. Ayes have it, it's so ordered. This concludes our regular agenda meeting. Any items brought forth by the council manager, city manager?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to take the opportunity. Kimberly, will you stand, please? I'd like to introduce you to Kimberly Carson. She is our new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. She comes to us from Louisiana by way of Iowa, by way of Vermont, and I think she hopes she's found a home here. But she joined us on Monday, and I had the opportunity to have lunch with her yesterday. She's a delightful person. I have high hopes for her.
All right, thank you. All right. And we also have a new attorney.
Yes, sir, that's right. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if you'd allow me to introduce briefly Gina Essie and ask her to stand up real quick. She's joined our office this week, and we're happy to have her. She has over 20 years of experience, and she's a Tar Heel undergrad and went to law school in Florida. But we're happy to have her. She's going to be doing contracts and working with several different city departments, and hope that y'all all get to know her. We're really happy to have her here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from you, attorney? Nothing else. All right. City clerk, anything? All right. Any items brought forth by the council? I'll start on their end.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, busy morning today. But I want to thank Judge Heath Nance and the Columbus County Detention Center for helping me to shine a light on issues of jail overcrowding, clean and safe conditions for inmates and staff, better access to resources. A newly made friend of mine, I promised him that I would mention, when I left him, his company this morning, he had not received his meds. So, Mr. Brown, if you're looking and anybody lets you know that I did mention, I hope you got those meds. And if not, the Columbus County Detention Center needs to make improvements on a timely manner of getting inmates their meds. This is kind of a joke, but I wanted to create an initiative that would put me in a situation that would help me to run for president. I wanted to gain the attention of citizens that would bring us together, not further our divide. And I also wanted to say that former U.S. President Donald Trump opted not to testify in his hush money trial, criminal hush money trial today, on Tuesday, bringing his defense to a quick close. You can read in between the lines, clearing the way for the deliberations, and I would say what takes place in a court setting between opposing counsels. Questions happen between counsel and the people who witnesses and things of that nature. And I would ask a question of what does irrelevant banter mean and to whom? And how is any banter about a person's life irrelevant? Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Welcome. Yes, ma'am.
So I would like to bring to the attention of everyone that the Good Shepherd Center, in collaboration with the Cape Fear Collective, is just about to reopen the 15-apartment permanent supportive housing complex at the Driftwood, and they are looking for support in completing the furnishings of that, and so they're looking for gift cards from Dollar Tree, Walmart, and Amazon. And if you can get a gift card from one of those places and take it over to the Good Shepherd Center or send it in the mail, 811 Market Street, Wilmington 28401, that would really help these folks to be welcomed into their new homes at the Driftwood Apartments.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all of the recent graduates who are celebrating from our community college, from our university, and for those who are staying in Wilmington, welcome. We're really glad to have you. Young adults and young professionals in the region, and as you are celebrating, do so responsibly. Don't drink and drive. It is a lot cheaper to hire an Uber than to hire an attorney.
Thank you. I just want to say that we do welcome our new employees, as well as I want to congratulate all of those who are graduating from college, and just want to make sure that we remember that our kids are getting out of school within a couple of weeks, so we want to make sure that we have some well-constructed things for them to do. And then the last shout out is my daughter Helen will be graduating from the University of Delaware on this weekend. And so I just want to shout out to her because she's looking. That ends our meeting. As the mayor would say, thank you for taking an interest in your city, and the meeting is adjourned.